Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode 274. I am Brendan. TUF, season 31, McGregor versus Chandler, episode 2. All right, we're going to cover the second episode here. This is a Mando Gutierrez versus Cody Gibson fight. We're going to be covering that stuff. I know this is a little bit weird, but I posted my my reaction video, or whatever you want to call these, to the first episode, a breakdown of the first episode last week, and then this will be this one. So if real quick before we get started, if you like this stuff, you want to follow the series, you want to follow me as I follow the series, subscribe to the channel so the next video is coming out. All right, let's get started. Okay, so this episode had I felt like this episode didn't drag as much as the last one. I don't know about you guys. When I was watching this one, I didn't find myself looking to see how much time was left to say, like, hey, when's the fight coming? It was more like, oh, the fight's already happening. Are we going to have time for a second one? Of course, no, that's not how it goes. But this episode felt a lot more polished. I know that they didn't have to do a lot of the legwork. Obviously, they're not doing the setup or anything like that, so they get to the editing was much more breezy in this one. Let's put it that way. And also a lot less confrontational. You know, they weren't making it out to be Connor versus Chandler. I know some people really like that stuff. I know it makes for snappy headlines and some grabby videos on Instagram and whatever. But I think I'm okay with this. I like I said in the first video, I would prefer to watch them just do training for 40 minutes and then watch the fight at the end. You know, I'd be okay with that. So the episode starts out. We will break down the fight. I promise we will. This episode might be a little bit shorter than the last one. I don't know. The commissioner comes in and tells Chandler that Wells can't fight. So it was supposed to be Wells versus Timur, but Wells comes in. He didn't get cleared by the doctors apparently, so he did everything he was supposed to do. He was making weight and did everything, but he had a cold sore that showed up on his face, and he can't fight with a cold sore. That is the way of the commission. So they have to change the date and possibly the weight class. So what does this mean for these two? Well, Dana basically said, hey, if he can't fight next week, then Timur's they'll give Timur a bye, and then this other kid doesn't get a shot. I guess I don't know how that's gonna work, but one of the other things they mentioned is like making them cut weight again for next week. That doesn't necessarily make sense. So what are they going to do? Are they going to make it so that, there's a catch weight? Well, we'll find out as they go on. And like I said, if they make it a catch weight, it's whatever. I don't think that's unfair to them. I think it's actually more fair because they've already missed weight, and through no fault of either fighter, the fight could not go on as planned. You know what I mean? Like if this was a, misuse or a bad misuse of time or bad dieting, not willing to cut the weight, stupid injury due to, fooling around in the house or something like that. That's one thing, but that's not what we have here. We just have, it's biology, dude. What are they going to do? Like you can't even fight it. It's just, when stress comes up, sometimes those breakouts happen. So that's exactly what happened here. So instead, they have Mando Gutierrez fighting Cody Gibson. There's friction in the house between Quinones and Roosevelt Roberts. It's fine. Again, it's not my cup of tea. It's not something I'm super excited about or seeing all the time. But it is what it is. It's there. I don't know if there was slim pickings as far as confrontation or friction in the house goes. That they're trying to parcel it out in each episode that they had, because this felt kind of weird. It's just two guys sitting at a table. One guy looks at him weird and says, "I don't like you." Whatever. I don't care for it. Whatever. They go in the background of each one of the guys. Cody Gibson being in the UFC before, being released from the UFC. He's been out of the UFC for 8 years. He's 35 years old now. He's got a family. And he's been fighting in other organizations and doing really well. So that's why Dana gave him another shot. Well, at least, in the TUF series, doesn't mean he's going to be in the UFC necessarily. And then Mando's out there. He's a barber. He grew up in Carpentersville, Illinois, and then moved out to Michigan. And he's, I think Cody. Oh yeah, Cody bonded with Chandler about because he's an adopted. He was an adopted child, and of course Chandler has adopted children. So that's they bonded over that. That's kind of cool. And Cody's from he's from Arkansas, I believe, or Oklahoma, and then now he lives in California. So Mando's in the house actually cutting people's hair, including Connor's. Like he's giving like Connor a fade while they're talking, and Connor's moving his head back and forth, like the one thing you're not supposed to do in a barber chair. So that was interesting to watch. Connor looks like he's having a lot more fun in the house. Again, I know they cut this to make the show more interesting, to give the show a story. Right, they're trying to tell a story here, and that's done in the editing room. They've got all this raw footage, so they're taking. This could have happened weeks in, right? This could have happened the first day. There's a lot of different things that go into this when it goes into the editing booth, and the way it's coming out now, they're trying to make it like, oh, Connor's like he's the life of the party, he's the fun guy, he's a hard worker. Great. Got no problem with it, but I think it's better that they're showing him like this than being a vindictive asshole. That's for sure. All right, let's get to the fight breakdown, shall we? Let's get a timestamp in here. Okay, Mando Gutierrez taking on Cody Gibson. So Cody was using the kicks to keep the distance, landing up the middle with that kick. Using a flick front kick to the face. It didn't really land that well. It's mostly on the arms, but he was using it to keep the distance. Then he would kick low. Mando moved in for the clinch, and he ended up getting reversed against the cage. Cody just using his height. I don't think he's necessarily stronger, but he was better in the clinch, and he had better positional awareness, and he was able to keep Mando against the cage. Cody was using his jab to pressure him back. Mando was back on the back foot the entire fight, and I think that led to his ultimate defeat here, because Mando's nose started to get bloody. They separate from one of these clinches. Cody used the uppercut during the separation, then he used a front kick to damage at distance, and then Mando was reaching. He wasn't finding his distance. He was coming up short on a lot of his shots. He was cutting his combos short, so he wasn't extending his combinations, which can allow you to enter in, right? If you throw one shot, yes, obviously you can hit somebody with that shot, but if you're trying to close distance, especially with a taller opponent, you might want to extend your combinations. Instead of throwing a 1-2, you throw a 1-2-3, or you throw a 1-1-2, you throw a 1-1-2-3-2. You can do a lot of things in there to extend that combination while you're moving forward, so you're still throwing punches, and maybe they'll block the 1-2, or they'll dodge the 1-2, but they're not going to dodge the 3, or they're not going to dodge the second one, right? So using all those different sequences, you can close the distance without necessarily exposing yourself to some shots by just wading in looking for a takedown. But that's not what he did, and Cody landed a huge flying knee, just a giant fucking flying knee here, and Mando went down. It's actually pretty brutal. He goes down, and it requires some ground and pound afterwards, but live look at it was pretty damn sweet. So fast, that quick switch knee. Another angle of it over here. Pop. That's it. That's all it took. Then he followed up some ground and pound to get the finish. So, great win for Cody Gibson. I think, what was his record before here? Let's just take a look at Cody Gibson before we leave and call it. All right, looking. Let's see his initial UFC fight. Oh yeah, and they showed who he fought in the UFC. His first fight in the UFC was Aljamain Sterling, which he lost a decision to. Okay, and obviously Aljamain Sterling back in 2014 isn't the same as he is now. But that being said, it's not that he was fighting some, bum. Johnny Bedford, he ends up getting the knockout against him. Manny Gambirian caught him in a submission with 4 seconds left in the round. Then he lost to Silva de Andrade. I do remember that one. Then he leaves and he goes fights in TWC. Gets the win there. TPF, 2 wins. TPF, he loses. Then wins in LFA, XMMA. Then his last win against was Francisco Rivera. That's a really good win. He lost to Ray Borg in the Eagle FC. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that one event that Eagle FC did that had a bunch of people in it. I remember he lost the decision to Ray Borg. He's got a win over John Dotson. You know, I think he could do it. I think he could come back in the UFC. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a champion. I think this division is so stacked. I don't know how much more advancing he's going to be doing at the age of 35. I don't want to put anything past him. I think he's an experienced veteran. I think he could make a decent career for himself in this division for the next 2 or 3 years. You know, fighting some contenders, doing some stuff, maybe fight his way into the rankings, get in the right circumstances. But as far as being a contender himself, I don't know if he's got it. We'll have to see if he even makes it out of the TUF house. And even if he doesn't, let's say maybe he has some exciting fights and Dana wants to sign him anyway. So overall, this second episode, more interesting, better than the first, that's for sure. Obviously, the first laid the groundwork, so this episode could move on without dragging its feet. And it worked. This episode was much better. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fight. The fight was a lot longer. There was more to it, even though it ended in the first round. So I'm down. I'm still excited to watch the rest of the season and cover it and break it down. So if you guys want to join me for that, I will be doing this every single week, probably putting these out on the Wednesday after it's released. So subscribe to the channel, see the next videos coming out. I appreciate y'all. Have an amazing week. I'll be breaking down the fights this weekend. Love y'all.